YouTube, this is Pecktec, and as you guys know, I love Warhammer 40k. I think in my last video in Plastic Crack, I had this great ambition where I was going to paint all these box sets and open them and kind of show you what the entire contents are. Well, just since I've made that video, I think like 2 of the products that I bought have already kind of gone out of stock. Well, I know at least the Kill Team, the Kill Team core set is now no longer a thing for sale. So I really questioned whether or not like that was going to be the way to go. Like they still sell a lot of the box sets, and I still might show off some of the box sets and stuff that I painted, but product wise, it's like, you know, if you wanted it, you've already seen it. Blackstone Fortress is sort of an offshoot of 40k. It is definitely not based around the 40k rule set at all. You can take the models and miniatures that are in Blackstone Fortress and use them in 40k. You can also use them in Kill Team, and they're great models just in general. But every once in a while, Games Workshop will venture out and make a box set that's basically more of a board game oriented, more aimed at your typical board gaming community. Of course, their stuff always comes with the added twist of having lots of components you actually have to assemble. That's the thing with Games Workshop, because it's kind of a two-pronged hobby. You've got the game itself and learning how to play it well, and then you've got the modeling aspect. And I found these models to be kind of difficult to put together. And I thought they were like supposed to be push fit, like no glue needed, push it together and stuff. But they were a little bit more complicated. They had several layers and different things to assemble at different times and stuff. And they didn't just kind of flow right together for me. I did have a good time painting them though. There were really, really neat characters in this box, and I really had a lot of fun putting it together. I didn't spend a great amount of time. I quickly painted all of these models just so I could go ahead and get this on the table and play it. But I really enjoyed this game. If you're a hardcore 40k fan, you're going to like having the extra resources and stuff for lots of different armies. And it's a fun way to kind of bring people in without having them to teach them 40k and kind of play in that universe without having to know the really sometimes strangely complicated rule set that is Warhammer or even Kill Team. Okay, so the premise for this game is you and a group of explorers are exploring this giant space station. Everyone has their own sort of agenda, a thing that they're really looking for that makes them actually reflects in their cards and makes them act a little differently and perform a little differently. But you can go through here and you find archaeotech, which is used for money, and then you find clues, which lead you to strongholds, and if you defeat enough strongholds, you can eventually fight the fortress and open up the sealed envelope and receive a special prize. I've not been online to see if these are all the same or they're different yet, so no spoilers. You've got about 13 tries to make the trip through the fortress. And every time you go through and you acquire things, you stick your character in these little bags. You've got these little Ziploc bags, and there's just enough room in there to hold the characters and extra cards that they may purchase. Yeah, after the adventure, you go back to the space station where everyone's docked, and you can do little gambits inside of their individual spaceships and get different privileges. One guy can bring someone back from the dead. Other things let you trade, special things or get special cards. It's pretty cool. You can also buy things, and they have these little cards for each ship with different things you can buy. And when you buy those, you slip them into these envelopes, and they're there for your next adventure. Also, every time you complete an adventure, you draw one of these legacy cards, and it's got its own envelope that tracks your adventure. And this adds difficulty to it. And there's only, I think there's only 12 of these. So that gives you about 13 tries to get to the secret envelope. So each time you go in for an adventure, you're going to draw an exploration card. And this exploration card will either have a combat that you then have to assemble out of these various map tiles. And there's a lot of different map tiles. This actually, I felt like slowed the game down a whole lot, because we'd be right into it, and then suddenly we're working a puzzle. My wife didn't mind it a whole lot, but your first couple of tries at building one of these little maps, may be a little bit tricky. The other thing that you get inside these things are challenges. And there are a number of different challenge cards. I believe the first one that came up with me was, which monster am I thinking of? Which I thought was completely bizarre. But basically, you go through there until your characters are so beat up that they need a break, and you can bring them back. You keep going through these cards, trying to collect as much of the archaeotech and clues and other things that you can get. Trying to get as much of that as you can before you go back to your spaceships, buy more supplies, and kind of restock for the next adventure. Because you need so many clues to get into the stronghold, and because you need a couple of strongholds defeated before you can get to the big fortress, you really want to make the most out of every trip into the ship. But your characters can die, and a bad dice roll will make a huge difference as far as being really happy with your adventure or not. Another thing that makes this game unique from a lot of other Games Workshop games are these dice. They're basically dice that we've seen a bunch of different times before in different ways. Like here's a 20-sided dice they call a Blackstone Fortress die. But a lot of these other dice here, they have different pips on them than you'd normally see. And basically there's one for a hit and two for a critical hit, and those things do different things to different characters. But doing it that way vastly simplified the game and made it much more enjoyable to me. It's just something else to look at besides, oh, it's an 8. Or now, because you're basically going until you're too beat up to go any further, it's hard to tell you exactly what to expect as far as a time frame for a game of Blackstone Fortress. I would plan on at least your first game being like 3, maybe 4 hours long, especially if you don't know the rules or everyone there doesn't know the rules really well. I expect that after that, you could probably speed through a game of Blackstone Fortress if you're like really going towards that end card there. If you wanted this super bad and you were just like blazing through these, you could probably get through a decent adventure in an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It really depends on how many of the combat cards you flip over. And I actually found the challenge cards to be the ones that did us in. Not so much the combat ones, where if you kind of just take your time and act really smart and get a little bit lucky, you can get through those. It takes a little time, but you can get through those without too much trouble. The challenge cards, however, can throw you completely for a loop and give you a grievous wound and not really a lot of time to deal with it. And even take away some of the progress that you've made, making another flip of the deck somewhat stressful. Hey, but that's my quick take on Blackstone Fortress. I like it a lot. I have a lot of fun playing it. I think you will too. Now, one thing I will say about this game is it's got a lot of components, and once you've modeled all your beautiful models and stuff, you're not going to have a safe place to keep them just in the box as it comes. Luckily, there's a company called Foam, and they have actually made these custom sets that are just for using in here. So we're going to pack this up nice and safe in the Foam and see how it fits in the box. All right, I had to play with it quite a bit to get it to the efficiency that you see right now. Basically, this one's really shallow, so a lot of your player stuff's going to go here, like all the cards and things. You can have almost nothing underneath this part, so because it's really deep. Most of the big pieces of the puzzle and the map pieces and all the ship and pieces and stuff, they're going to be right here. You get your cards sorted up here and in here. Of course, I'm taking up a little bit of extra room with these little token trays that I like to use. But yeah. And of course, I've got my cards and bags just to make them really easy to pull out and keep sorted and stuff like that. So they're taking up a little bit of extra room. And right across the top is where you stick all your rule books and stuff. All right, now I got it all sealed up and optimized probably the best I can. You can see that there's a little bit, sticks up just a little bit, of course, but everything's really well protected. I'd feel really good about taking this to somebody's house, busting it out for a game. So it should keep everything really safe and ready to go for your next Blackstone Fortress adventure. So I guess my final vote on Blackstone Fortress is it's great. It's a really soft game compared to 40K, but let you still play in that same universe. There's enough of the stuff that you've grown to love about Warhammer 40K over the past 30 years or so that it's been around. There's enough of that in there to keep your interest, and it's simple and easy enough to where some of your friends that aren't so heavy into the Warhammer 40K games or any kind of board game in general, it's not so deep that they can't get in there and have a good time too. I could say the downsides for this is if you have one of those issues with co-op games where you've got one person in particular that's going to just order the other people around and they're basically playing the game solo and making up their own rules. If you've got a problem person like that in your game group, that's definitely going to be an issue here, just like it's an issue in every co-op game. But yeah, I guess that would be one downside. Another downside is that it is a dice rolling game. There's a lot of dice. I don't know if the luck is mitigated out quite enough. I mean, you've got a lot of different elements that kind of work to balance things out, luck-wise. But when it comes down to it, you can have just a series, the best placement in the world, and still a bad dice roll just kills you through the game. You can also have miraculous victories that never should have happened because of great dice rolls too. So in a way, that balances it out also. But folks, I'm sorry I've been sort of absent from the games channel. What's funny is I really enjoy painting and building these things, but it occupies every bit of extra time that I have, and it hasn't made it very possible to just like sit down and even play a couple of games, let alone make a video about it. But I'll be back soon with some other stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about Kickstarter. I've backed a whole bunch of Kickstarter games, and they're starting to come in, especially Nemesis has just arrived, and I've just finished painting those guys. Yeah, I got lots of stuff, and that's all coming up real soon. Till next time, this has been Sean Peck. I hope you have a great game. See you soon. But doing it that way vastly simplified this. But doing it that way vastly simplified the game. But doing it that way, to me, vastly simplified, blah, 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 blah.